Good afternoon, all.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Always wonderful.
Good. Good to hear.
Have I ever introduced you to my assistant?
I don't think so, Frank.
Oh, well, give me a moment if I can uh, turn off my background here.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hey Frank, how you doing?
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Excellent.
Hi Kristen, how you doing?
How are I'm doing well.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are streaming now.
My assistant, Max, up and down. Hey, come on. She doesn't want to listen to me right now. My parrot.
How old is he, Frank?
She is 36. She'll be 37 this year. I've had her since she was 2 weeks old.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Mr. Gandhi, did you have any success with that other item we talked about?
I have some information. I'll give you a call after this
Okay.
complaint review.
We have quite a few items. It might take longer than usual.
Yeah, it's a heavy agenda today.
Yeah.
Well, I have to be off the phone call by at least 1 p.m. to after tomorrow afternoon.
We only have 24 hours.
Yes.
Dr. Gandhi, it's 1 o'clock. Are we good to start?
We're definitely good to go, Jeff.
All
Thank
right,
you.
very good. Welcome to the February 4th, 2025 Complaint Review Committee meeting of the Arizona State Board of Pharmacy. My name is Jeff Anderson, and I'm Vice Chair of the board, and I'll be leading us through today's complaints in Ms. Walmsley's absence. It's 1 o'clock, and I'll now call this meeting to order. May I please have a member of staff conduct roll call and collect any conflict of interest declarations, please?
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I'll start with you, Mr. Anderson.
Present, and I am recused from 4P, 4R, and 4S due to my employment.
Perfect. And you've submitted your forms.
I have.
Thank you. Mr. Thorwald.
No conflicts, and I'm here.
Thank you. Mr. Al-Nassif.
I'm here with no conflicts.
Perfect. And Ms. Nair.
I am present and I have a conflict with 4T 24-0497.
And you've submitted your paperwork.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Mr. Chair, we have everybody accounted for.
Wonderful. We'll go ahead and get started. We do have a heavy agenda. We'll start with 4A. This is case number 24-0414. Respondent is pharmacist Lisa Gurton and permit holder Accredo Health. The type of complaint, a medication was shipped with no temperature control. We'll open the floor for discussion.
I do want to start off just saying I meant to ask about this. This is my former employer. I don't know if you wanted me to recuse. I don't know if this happened possibly when I was employed.
Kristen, as long as you can state on the record that you can adjudicate this with an open mind. You don't know Ms. Gurton, is that correct? Okay, no interaction with her. So if you feel you can adjudicate it fairly, then you can proceed and participate.
Okay, and I'll proceed. I can.
All right, thank you, Ms. Nair.
Then I will proceed with my comments. My recommendation would be to dismiss this. The manufacturer guidelines do allow for excursions in temperature, and the pharmacy offered different solutions that weren't taken by the patient for future prescriptions.
I agree with your opinion, but I would just like to add to it. I believe it is not, there's nothing wrong with packaging, is with shipment. So the way I see they tie to the rules about packaging, but I see is more concerned about shipment than packaging. And I agree with Ms. Nair.
I'll make that my motion.
I said,
It's yours. Yeah.
So we have a first and a second to dismiss. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to tab 4B. This is 24-0376. Respondent is pharmacist Brittany Rollins. Type of complaint, Ms. Rollins walked off her shift without notice at work and left the IV technician alone in the pharmacy, unlocked and unattended. We'll open the floor for discussion.
I'd like to hear from her. That's what I feel like is missing in this case. I would like to move for conference.
I did have a question for Ms. Chang if she's available. Ms. Chang, are you available?
Yes, I am available.
Ms. Rollins made a claim in her statement that technicians were issued keys to this satellite pharmacy. Did you explore that at all?
Yes, I did. I did check with the director of pharmacy, and she stated that there were no keys issued to the technicians, and that that's not allowed. However, the only information that I received was from a director who was new in this position, so I don't have any knowledge or information as to previous director. However, the new director stated that they do not have keys and they're not allowed to.
So, Mr. Jefferson, to your point, I share the same concern. I don't know if this is something norm for this pharmacy. If this true and the technician previously had access to pharmacy or a key, that definitely a concern. But this is not the case. I totally understand that. But I would like to hear from the pharmacist. I agree with Ms. Smith.
I would, if somebody walks off and doesn't leave a notice and leaves things, to me, that's unexcusable, even if there's a death in the family. I mean, like, you can put a notice, you can do something, you can take some kind of action. I'm not sure hearing something from them would change my opinion of that in any way.
Yeah, in this case, they should ask staff or technician to leave the pharmacy and inform their management to find coverage.
Or
This, may I add a comment? In this particular case, it doesn't sound like the pharmacist asked the technician to leave. The pharmacist just went into the IV room and told the technician bye-bye and left. And the technician was alone in the pharmacy during that time, until she were able to quickly get out of the IV room and went to the office side of the pharmacy.
Saying is that that's what should have occurred and did not in this case, so. Do we want to hear from her? Do we want to ask some questions? I was kind of interested to hear more from.
I would like to hear from her just to verify the comment she wrote about technicians have access to the pharmacy.
Yeah,
So I would
I'll
like
make
to
this
hear from
for
her.
conference.
I second.
All right, we have a first and a second to move this complaint to conference. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to tab 4C, this is complaint 24-0597. Our respondent is technician trainee Edwin Cesar Flores. Type of complaint, registrant may have failed to report charges within 10 working days. Open the floor for discussion.
I will go with our standard $250 non-disciplinary fine for failing to report charges within 10 working days.
Is that your motion, Mr. Nisser?
Yeah, that is my motion, $250 fine.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to tab 4D, this is complaint 24-0083. Respondent is permit holder Safeway Pharmacy number 1207. Pharmacist Heather Bailey and pharmacist Jay Chang. Type of complaint is the complainant, the plaintiff's wife, or I'm sorry, the patient's wife alleged that the pharmacy filled unwanted duplicating medication, did not accept the prescription return, and declined a refund of the amount paid. Open the floor for discussion.
Yeah, go ahead, Mrs. Smith.
Yeah, sorry. I was just gonna say, there was no call on the fact that there was potentially a duplicate therapy that I can see. I feel like the PIC should be dismissed in this complaint. It does state that in the counseling, they were told to discontinue the medication. So I was a little conflicted. Mr. Nassif, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I was thinking the same. just I like to confirm. So the note says to discontinue from a pharmacist to patient.
I,
Uh,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I read it completely. I read it that they both missed and both Ms. Bailey and Ms. Chang were involved in filling it. Did I misread that?
Oh, no, but maybe I did.
I believe one of them filled the new one is the pharmacist in charge did the refill. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
This is Ram. I investigated the complaint. So the new prescription was filled by Jay Chang and refill was filled by Heather Bailey. And so both missed to document in the DUR screens for respective prescriptions. But Jay Chang claimed that she told the patient's patient not to continue the 50 milligram strength. But she did not write that in the documentation. That was
She said.
that was the deficit.
And they were both dispensed together at the same time?
No, they were dispensed few days apart. First, they dispensed the 200 milligram strength, and then a couple of days later, the 50 milligram strength, which was an autofill, was dispensed. But patient did not take the duplicating medication, the 50 milligram strength. His wife knew that it's not necessary to contain the lower strength, continue the lower strength. So she wanted to return and refund immediately. So the technician handled the call, but subsequently the pharmacist got involved and issued the refund. So patient did not consume excessive dose, but it was during the DUR, they did not put the comments in the DUR comment field.
Okay. So the reason I support dismiss the PIC or PIC because this pharmacist did the refill after the new one filled. So assuming the first pharmacist verified or double check with provider or with the patient.
The first pharmacist, during the consultation, she claimed that she told the patient not to use the old medication, but she did not state that she contacted the doctor.
Yeah, but she did not discontinue.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So if she confirmed with the patient, but she did not put stop in the system to
Yes.
prevent this to be released to the patient. So I move to dismiss permit holder, dismiss the PIC, and I believe at this point I move to advisory letter, non-disciplinary, to pharmacist. So this is my motion. I heard you saying something, Mrs. Snare. You're muted.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm muted. You hear me?
Now, yeah.
You can hear you.
Oh, I just said I would second that.
All right, so we have a first to dismiss against the permit, an advisory letter to, did I hear you correctly, Mr. Nassif, to Ms. Bailey? Or no, to Ms. Chang? And an advisory letter to Ms. Chang
Correct.
and dismiss against Ms. Bailey.
Correct. That's my motion.
And Ms. Snare, second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to tab 4E.
Mr. Anderson, if I may jump in real quick,
Sure.
if we can refrain from using names on the complaints or company names at this time,
Okay.
that'd be great. Thank you.
So this is complaint number 24-0618. Type of complaint, patient reported suffering adverse effects after consuming a prescription filled with a different drug than what was prescribed.
I have 4E.
I'm sorry. I clicked the wrong tab. My apologies. Thanks.
Is that okay?
Moving back to 4D, this is complaint number 24-0083.
No, I'm sorry. Sorry, it's 4E as in Edward. We just did 4D.
Correct. Yep, 4E is in Edward. Complaint number 24-0618. Type of complaint is patient reported suffering adverse effects after consuming a prescription filled with a different drug than what was prescribed. We'll open the floor for discussion. Is Mr. Hyber on?
Steve.
Mr. Hyber, is that you?
Yeah, I see him online.
How about now? Can you gentlemen hear me
Oh,
now?
yeah.
All right, I just had the wrong setting there. Sorry.
Hi, Mr. Hyber. I had a question. The response indicated that from the PIC that he believes that it stems from the return to stock labeling process. Did you investigate that return to stock labeling process, and what did you discover?
I did not.
Okay.
To your point, Mr. Jeffrey, so I mean, there's always a cause, like a root cause for those type of errors, like return to stock, but I don't think anybody will be able to determine what the root of this error. But sure, the error happened, and it's so I will go. I move to dismiss the permit holder and 3 hours of continuous education, non-disciplinary, for patient safety or error prevention for both the tech and the pharmacist.
Any further discussion or a second?
Second.
All right, we've got a first and a second to dismiss against the permit and non-disciplinary CE for both the technician and the pharmacist. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving on to tab 4F, this is complaint 24-0556. Type of complaint, a patient received medication that belonged to another patient. I'll open the floor for discussion.
Looked to me as if it was a trainee that was learning the process but didn't follow it correctly. So I would suggest 3 hours of non-disciplinary CE for the trainee and a letter of concern to the pharmacist that was supervising the trainee, and dismiss the permit holder.
Before I second this, just I have a question to our compliance officer, Mr. Jacobson. So all medication were refills, or any of them is a new one required counseling?
That is a good question, Mr. Al-Nassif. I do not recall off the top of my head.
Because I tried to read through it, because it's all refills, I will dismiss the pharmacist. That's the only difference it will make to me. And then I would agree with 3 hours for the trainee.
So I guess my question for discussion here is we've got a floating pharmacist to this location that's probably has a belief that the staff that is assigned to him on his shift is properly trained or can escalate properly. It just seems like Mr. Joseph really struggled to troubleshoot and escalate issues and just allowed the transaction to go through. So I'm not sure how well the technician trainee was actually trained to work in that function. I see how it seemed like he was unprepared and didn't have the support he needed to escalate any transaction concerns. So I'm struggling with anything for the pharmacist who's there, who to me I would think he would have the belief that this trainee has some degree of competence in running the register.
You have an alternate motion?
My alternate motion is to dismiss permit holder, pharmacist, and 3 hours for the trainee, non-disciplinary CE for error prevention or patient safety.
We'll say I was thinking a letter of concern because of the maybe a possibly lack of support from the for the trainee. But I don't know if that's.
Was that the letter of concern for the permit or for the floating pharmacist that was there that day?
Pharmacist.
I'm sorry.
Pharmacist.
All right, so Mr. Nassif, are you agreeable to amending your motion?
No, it wasn't my motion. She made the motion. I was just giving her alternative. So I did not make motion. So she still have her motion.
right.
Right. We're waiting for a second.
So,
Right.
Mr. What was your motion? Can you please repeat it?
Yeah, it was a letter of concern for the pharmacist and 3 hours of non-disciplinary CE for the tech trainee in med error prevention.
Okay, do we have a second? All right, motion fails without a second. Mr. Nassif, what was your motion?
My motion dismiss for permit holder and for the pharmacist and 3 hours of continuous education for the trainee, non-disciplinary for prevention, error prevention, or patient safety.
I'll second that. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to tab 4G, this is complaint 24-0549. Type of complaint, a wrong drug was dispensed to a patient. And we'll open the floor for discussion.
To me, I mean, I tried to look at this as as errors we used to go through, but having this medications like dangerous med involved, 2 patients involved, and I'm leaning more to disciplinary action for that pharmacist.
Any comments on the workload that he was mentioning? Like contributing factors?
I will ask Mr. Jacobson if he has any information.
So based on routine compliance inspection, this is a busy store. However, there was nothing out of ordinary as far as pharmacy operations go.
So, Mr. Jacobson, what, I mean, I come from a different environment where methotrexate is, high alert, Institute for Safe Medication Practices, we have it segregated. Was there any sort of segregation of methotrexate from the routine stock in how they stocked a high-risk drug like methotrexate?
Mr. Anderson, I really can't speak to that as a practice for this pharmacy, but that is not a requirement for a community pharmacy in this type of practice.
Understood.
People were present in the pharmacy at the time, because it almost appears as if the pharmacist was alone, but then it talks about technicians using the automated pill counter. Mr. Jacobson, do you know?
You know what? I don't know that at the time of this issue that happened, I didn't take a inventory of who was working at that time. We do know that the pharmacist was the only one involved in the dispensation of this drug.
So, Mr. Nassif, you said you were leaning towards a discipline for the pharmacist. What were you thinking?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, but I'm not ready to make a motion yet, you know, so I'm looking through my notes.
Even though segregation and storage may not be a regulatory requirement for high alert drugs, could that be something that we could formulate in an advisory letter, Ms. Galvin or Mr. Hargraves?
Typically, an advisory letter is where you believe that the conduct is not sufficient to warrant disciplinary action, or where you find that there is no violation. Your statutes and rules don't require segregation of this drug. Our standards and rules are the minimum standards. We don't adjudicate to the highest practice standards, which maybe is, you know, what you are encountering daily.
Yeah, it is required by USP 800 rules, but we don't follow this, or we have not adapted these rules yet.
I don't see any reason why this would warrant disciplinary action. I see it very similar to other errors. I don't see if we're following just culture where there was a misstep in following the policy or following a process that was put in place as a safety process. And that's when we've typically imposed discipline. So I just don't see that in this case. And I was just curious, Mr. Nassif, what were you thinking as far as the difference here?
So it's just the type of medication involved and to really harm for a patient, right? It is, and end up in the hospital, right? And this error involved two different patients. It's not one.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree it is like an error, but this error just caused, I would say, like harm for two patients, not only for one.
I just don't think that's consistent with what we've done before. I understand what you're saying, and I agree there's a high alert to certain medications, but I don't think we've taken disciplinary action before.
Right, go ahead, make a motion.
Okay. I'll make a motion for 3 hours of non-disciplinary CE for the pharmacist and no action against the permit holder.
In what area?
Med error prevention.
I just don't think that's sufficient when you have something dangerous to like that. If you're using something very dangerous, you should
But
be
if
more
we
careful.
use the word dangerous, then we're going to have to define what that means, Because if I'm allergic to amoxicillin and you gave that to me, that would be dangerous. And it's not dangerous for someone else.
That's true.
I don't know. I feel like anything you put into your mouth or into your body could be dangerous.
But this medication is dangerous to anyone when you take it more than like advised dose. It is dangerous med.
That case can be made for many drugs.
It is subjective.
I think it's well published in the safety literature that handling of methotrexate requires higher scrutiny and higher precaution for healthcare professionals. So I think it's well established that methotrexate should have some safeguards around it. If I understood Ms. Galvin correctly, we could issue an advisory letter to the permit holder for them to consider storage practices of high alert drugs, including segregation of methotrexate. Is that something I understood correctly, Ms. Galvin? Could we do that?
You could, yes.
But it's not a violation. Is it just a request of ours that you take safety precautions?
Advisory letters, when they are issued, you do not have to find a violation, or they are issued in instances where you believe that even though there was a violation, it doesn't rise to the level of requiring some sort of discipline. An advisory letter is often issued if you don't believe that a violation has occurred, but continued conduct along the same lines could result in a violation in the future.
Mrs. Snare, can you add to your motion to add 3 more hours for hazardous drug CE? So it'll be a total of 6 hours.
Okay, so just to come up with I'll come up with a new motion then.
Modify your motion.
I
Yeah, Mr. Barwell.
I was just going to say, I think an advisory letter is appropriate as well.
Going with the thought here, an advisory letter to the permit holder regarding the safety precautions of this particular medication, and 6 hours of non-disciplinary CE to the pharmacist in med-error prevention.
Yeah, 3 mid-error prevention and 3 hazardous drug.
Oh, 3, okay.
Hazard drug.
Yes, I will make that part of my motion.
Second.
All right, we've got a first and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to tab 4H. This is complaint number 24-0517. Type of complaint: a pharmacy refilled a patient's medication with an alternate generic drug and failed to counsel the patient concerning the product change. Open the floor for discussion.
I was just like looking at the rules here. I just like to confirm with our compliance officer, are pharmacists required to counsel a patient for changing manufacturer?
I cited them 402B2. 2 says pharmacists through the exercise of professional judgment determines that oral consultation is warranted. That's what you need to use. That
Yeah,
one.
but it's not required, right? Because pharmacists always exercise their clinical judgment with every step they do in the pharmacy. But is it, because I want to make sure what violations we have here. I don't see not counseling patients is violation, because when I read the rules, if we go to same rules, number 1, it says, I mean, I'm trying to read it here, is only required when changing dose or direct or SIG or directions or medications. There is nothing in the rule says changing, that's in number 1. Nothing of the rule says about changing manufacturer. Now, when we go into number 2, I agree with you, it says like pharmacists will you exercise their clinical judgment. I don't have the rules next to me, but I don't see the pharmacist went against any of our state rules. unless, and please correct me if I'm wrong, anybody can correct me.
Well, if I can jump in, Mr. Anderson. When you have a generic change, you could have a tablet size change, you could have a color change, different imprints on the tablets. And then it's your professional judgment at that time whether the patient needs counseling or not, right?
Correct.
So are you using your professional judgment to say, no, this patient doesn't need counseling, even though the tablet looks completely different? And they've taken a round white pill for 20 years,
Yeah,
and all of a sudden they're getting a square blue pill.
correct.
Is that proper professional judgment? Is what you have to determine.
Yeah, but it is, yeah, I agree with you. I would talk to patients for sure. And then I know pharmacists, they put like a sticker there, like look different, the same medications.
And
But
we asked for that information. I had a discussion with the attorney regarding this matter, whether there was any indication on the bottle or receipt or label, whether there was the manufacturer has changed, may look different, but I didn't receive anything.
yeah,
So the patient is not aware that the medication's the same from any notation. So that I recall anyways.
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm going
I'm
to
just
jump
like trying
in
to
that
tie it
there.
to our rules. Go ahead.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Okay. There was one of the responses, if you read them closely, I believe one of them stated that there was a notation on one of the receipts. But again, unless you understood everything that's at play here, you probably wouldn't have known what that meant. And remember, this patient thought they received the wrong medication. And the reason they went to the trouble to look it up because they weren't told that the medication had changed. And fortunately, it wasn't the wrong medication, but they looked it up wrong. And the correct medication was filled and dispensed. But this whole case is sitting before you today because nobody took the moment to just say, hey, there's been a change. Might look the same in size, and in color, but it's a different looking symbol on the tablet than the previous one that you've been getting all along.
Yeah, but how, I mean, I totally agree. Again, I would do it. I would do the same. Again, I'm going to talk to patients. But if we're going to tie it to a rules, to which rules? It says the pharmacist, through the exercise of professional judgment, who said they did not exercise their professional judgment and they decide not to. I mean, this is just, I mean, I see the concern. I agree with it. Patients deserve a courtesy of take a minute or two to talk to them and let them know I agree with this 100%. But when we're going to hold the pharmacist accountable for rules, I don't see this rule, we can't tie to this one because, I mean, if we're gonna make the new standard here, I can imagine we're gonna increase the pharmacist work and gonna be like, with short of meds and shortage and back orders, like every prescriptions will look different. I mean, we went through this in 2022, 2023. And again, patients deserve time to let them know or talk to them. I agree with that. But I don't see yet the rules will apply to this violation. Because through the exercise of professional judgment, so who said did not use their professional judgment and decide not to?
I have mixed feelings myself from dismissal to some type of letter because I agree with Tariq. I don't see the formal violation, but at the same time, I have seen many people that get medication where the med looks different. It's the same thing, but it looks different. And they are very confused by it. And when they're confused, they don't take it or they look it up. They complain that it's somebody giving them to them, for instance, in an assisted living facility, that they're doing something wrong and trying to poison them or whatever it might be. And it's very important, I think, to explain that there is a change in size or color or something. But I don't see a violation.
All right, is there a motion on the floor?
I would say in our last case, we had a letter of concern, which was in place because there was no it didn't reach the level of a violation, but we were concerned about the action that was taken. So that would be my motion to have a letter of concern to the pharmacist.
Second.
And then just for clarity, dismiss against the permit and the trainee?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, actually, I don't know, the pharmacist may not have known to counsel if they weren't notified by the technician. I'm not sure. I was thinking just the pharmacist, but.
To me, it seems like all people concerned with that, but
So the letter of concern to all respondents on this complaint?
I think so myself.
Ms. Snare, do you want to modify?
Sure, I'll modify that.
And Mr. Thorwald, your second remains?
Yes, my second remains.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
I just voted nay, just FYI.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Nassif, one nay.
Yeah, I have one nay, yeah.
Okay. All right, moving on to tab number 4I. This is complaint number 24-0645. Type of complaint, a licensee violated an order for non-disciplinary civil penalty. Open the floor for discussion.
They haven't completed a board order, so I would make a motion to move to hearing.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving on to 4J. This is complaint number 24-0295. Type of complaint, the pharmacist failed to maintain effective controls against the diversion of controlled substances. We'll open the floor for discussion.
So the person who was diverting was the asset protection individual, was working for asset protection.
That's how I read it.
I think that in that case, you would comply with asset protection. I feel for the pharmacist because they were, it seems to me they were doing what they were asked to do, and they usually cooperate with asset protection when they're doing an investigation. So I say a letter of concern to the pharmacist, the PIC, the pharmacist that was involved directly.
I guess I'm confused. If your first statement said you should follow asset protection and, comply with their requests, why then the advisory letter to the pharmacist?
I think that they probably should have stayed with the asset protection to make sure that what they were doing was appropriate. So there is a level of oversight that should still be done. They made the comments about in here that if I recall, that was the case, that they maybe should have overseen it a little more. And that sounds reasonable to me. Or I could go with a dismissal, but I just think there is a level of oversight, even when it's asset protection.
Agree, Ms. Snare. I mean, as a practicing pharmacist, I would never allow a non-licensed pharmacist without my supervision in my safe. And the pharmacist that allowed this asset protection person without supervision to access their safe is troubling to me.
I'm not sure it was in the safe. I believe they just received, at that moment, they just received the shipment from a wholesaler and they put it on the side. waiting to check in when that happened.
Mr. Patel, can you?
Mr. Patel, could you confirm that?
There was a bag waiting to be checked in, but the asset protection person was doing a complete investigation. So looking at what was in the safe and what was in the bag altogether.
So it wasn't in the safe. She might give him like access to the C2 safe, but it was outside of the safe.
Mr. Patel, I have a follow-up question. Did you seem like it was like a cultural norm for these district asset protection leaders to access controlled substances without pharmacists? And was that something that was commonplace within this permit?
I can't speak to that. It depends on the pharmacist and how willing they are to trust the asset protection leaders. Each pharmacist may react differently to the asset protection leader. We do have SOP that says their standard operating procedure says that the Schedule 2 drugs must be stored in securely locked designated Schedule 2 safe, and only a registered pharmacist may have access to the Schedule 2 safe. And that includes all Schedule 2 medications, whether they're in a bag or in the safe. Only a pharmacist may have access to that.
Yeah, this is the pharmacy policy. I read this, but we don't know when they conduct investigation, internal investigation. I would like to hear to see the other department policy. If it's like a norm for them that to give access, now we have an issue here and concern about like not licensed staff have access to control medications.
But you would have to allow them to have access if they were doing a investigation.
Does anyone believe a conference may be helpful? Then you can get an idea of what access is typically allowed. Do these individuals have, routine access?
Yeah.
This happened before?
Correct. So I have a motion. I will dismiss pharmacy manager for sure. She has nothing to do with that. And for the pharmacist and the permitter, I would like to have a conference and ask some questions.
I have another question. I have a question. In that situation, does the asset protection person have authority over the pharmacist, or are they equal?
It's not through our rules. I mean, they have no restriction or anything inside the pharmacy, but might inside the company internally, they might have authority. And that's one of the questions we need to ask them.
And that's what I was wondering within the company.
Yeah.
So I know of no authority that the asset protection leader has over the pharmacist. The pharmacist does have the responsibility to oversee what is going on with the safe and the products in the safe.
Yeah.
To me, then the pharmacist should have been there.
Mr. Nassif, if we're looking towards having a conference, I would recommend not dismissing the pick at this time. I would include her because, she may have information that would be pertinent. And if we dismiss her now, then she doesn't attend the conference.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to define my motion and I move for conference for all listed.
And I rescind my motion because I started one.
All right, so we have a first for conference. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to tab 4A. This is complaint 24-0548. Type of complaint, a complainant, the patient, alleged that the pharmacy filled the wrong quantity of her prescription medication. We'll open the floor for discussion.
This is typical error, and I just, unless anybody has a comment, I already have a motion for this.
So there's a motion to dismiss. Is there a second?
No, actually, no, I'm not dismissing. My motion is to 3 hours non-disciplinary for error prevention or patient safety. That's for the pharmacist and for the technician, and dismiss the permit holder.
All right, do we have a second?
Can we talk about it just for a second? They typed it incorrectly. It was never dispensed, right? It was transferred out and then it was caught before.
Oh, I believe it was dispensed unless I misread it.
Can I jump in? This
Yeah.
is Ram.
Yes.
So they did a partial quantity. So the patient was left with the partial, and there was a shortage of this medication. It's not cromolyn for inhalation. This is cromolyn for oral use. So they didn't have that in enough amount at McKesson, so they couldn't get it. They didn't have enough amount at the warehouse. They couldn't get it from their warehouse. So they had to transfer it to a competitor pharmacy, and they dispensed the full amount.
But when I read the summary, it says enter 240 ml for 240 vials of
That's
5
correct.
ml.
That's correct. So the patient was left with the 240 ml. And the prescription was transferred to the competitor pharmacy.
So the quantity entered wrong, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So the intention wasn't to give partial, it just entered wrong.
Yes.
Okay, I'll second, if it hasn't already been seconded.
All right, we've got a first and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to tab 4L. This is complaint 24-0242. Type of complaint. This is an appeal to an executive director dismissal. The complainant alleged that the pharmacist refused to fill medications for OxyContin and pregabalin that resulted in delayed care. I'll open the floor for discussion.
I don't see any violation there. I mean, the pharmacist has a right to verify with the provider and follow the policy. This is for public safety. So I would agree with the executive director dismissal, and I move to, motion would be like
Dismiss.
dismiss.
No, to uphold the executive director's dismissal.
Yep, this is my motion.
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to tab 4M. This is complaint 24-0600. Type of complaint, a licensee may have failed to report charges within 10 working days. Open the floor for discussion.
Make a motion for $250 fine for failure to report.
Second.
All right, we've got a first and a second. Any further discussion?
Is that disciplinary or non-disciplinary?
Disciplinary.
None, right?
Non-disciplinary, $250 civil penalty, failure to provide.
Sorry. I'll try to speak up.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to tab 4N, complaint 24-0609. Type of complaint, a licensee failed to comply with the continuing professional education requirements. Open the floor for discussion.
Do we move for hearing in these cases? Usually?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so this is my motion, move for hearing.
Second.
All in favor or any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 4O. This is complaint number 24-0563. Type of complaint, a pharmacist would not provide license information when requested. Open the floor for discussion.
It's not required to have it on the wall. So number one, but I do understand that when asked, they do have to provide that information. So my thought was a letter of concern.
Who, is that in statute or rule that they have to provide that?
I believe it is, yeah. Is that,
Think it's rule.
Yeah,
It's on the next page. This is Dennis Wagoner,
Oh, I see it right
under
now.
32-1933.
I see it now, yes.
What about, I think she raised a concern about her safety, and
blame.
the complainant.
yeah, I mean, like
Not-
giving a name, or she's not gonna give them the home address or anything like this, but I believe giving the license number and the name, is required.
But I'm just saying, reading the actual text of the rule doesn't explicitly say that.
Which page you looking?
Yeah, 32-1933,
Mhm.
as long as they've got it on their licensee shall maintain the licensee's current renewal license or duplicate current renewal license if practicing in more than one location in the practice site for inspection by the board or its designee or review by the public. So
Yeah, I'll stick with what I said at the beginning. I would say a letter of concern.
I second.
I can understand not wanting to provide information if it's a hostile situation, but that's a requirement, so.
all right, we've got a first and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
I'm sorry, I only heard 2 votes.
oh, I'm sorry, did we not get a second? My apologies.
And we got a second, but I don't hear everyone voting, not just on this.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Do we want to do anything with the respondent pharmacy on this one, or is that one dismissed?
Dismiss.
All right, we have a motion to dismiss by Ms. Snare. Do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And the next tab is 4P, and I'm recused, so I will turn my video off and hand it over to Ms. Snare.
Isn't there a quick question? Would it be better to just say if there's anybody that besides just voting, to ask if there's anybody that's recuses themselves or a nay?
You mean
When we're
we're-
voting in that, in other words, there was concern that she wasn't hearing all of us say aye or a response. And I'm just was wondering, is there any nays or abstentions? Would that make the record clearer?
It would.
So give 3 options, so.
Really, we're pretty good about the recusals. So I would just ask, all those in favor, yes, any opposed?
Okay,
That does make it for a better record.
Okay, I will do better. Thank you.
I'm not clear on what the difference is. Sorry.
I think we were just kind of shorthanding it and say all in favor. And
Okay,
then we would conclude that there was a majority. We didn't ask if anyone was opposed in some of those motions.
got it. All right, so 4P 24-0629. A patient received medication with instructions to use for 30 days, but the medication was only stable for 14. So anybody have any thoughts on this?
It is a valid concern, about this type of practice. especially when antibiotic doesn't come, like the smallest size would be sometimes in this case enough for 45 days and is only good for 14 days, right? And this one of the cases that the pharmacist should talk to patients or parents, but they accept declination, right? Decline, cancel, and in these cases, I would absolutely not allow patients to decline counseling. This is my opinion. I believe now regarding the intern is still learning. Intern still did the data entry, but it's still the responsibility of the pharmacist to do so.
Who did there was no.
Yeah.
And some type of, they say it's the manufacturer does give the discard after 14 days, but that needs to be highlighted and maybe a sticker or something.
To be stickers, or even if you look at the auxiliary label, it says discard after blank, right? That's blank not filled, correct?
Right.
Or the expiration, or at least says like discard after 14 days in the SIG, like something visible and readable for the patient or parents.
Great, I agree. Also, there's a concern about it stating whether or not it needs to be refrigerated.
Yeah, and then giving 14 days plus 14 days, that will make it 2 days shorter. If I was them, I would do 10 days, 10 days, 10 days. You know what I mean? Like something to work with the parents when you have a newborn. Will be more cautious and more careful, and we make sure the patient is receiving the accurate dose and accurate medications.
Yeah, agreed. Even the 1.1 mLs, it's kind of with counseling really helpful to find that dose for the patient.
And this is very hard to measure. I mean, the pharmacist should, doctor, can we round it to 1 ml? Can we round it to 1.5? I don't know what the case.
All the way around, it needed some extra caution and extra care.
So I didn't see this kind of caution in this all workflow there. I mean, like, and then they let the parents take the medication, and luckily the father was, you know, careful enough to read through it, right? So I wasn't sure if the tech is involved with this, Mr. Jacobson.
Yeah, Mr. Al-Nassif, I don't believe there was a tech involved in this. It was filled by an intern and checked by a pharmacist.
And what about the PIC, the pharmacy manager? Was he involved?
They just responded, right, Mr. Jacobson? They weren't directly involved.
Correct. He was not directly involved in this dispensation, but he did respond as part of the pharmacy operation.
Okay. So I move to dismiss the intern, dismiss the permit holder and the PIC, the pharmacy manager, and I will apply 3 hours CE non-disciplinary for pharmacist and error prevention and patient safety.
I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Mr. Anderson, do you want me just to jump to R and S and then we'll come back to Q? So you can
wonderful. Stay
recused. Okay. All right. So for R 24-0471, an anonymous complaint was received that alleged that an incorrect IV antibiotic was prepared and administered to a patient. I don't feel like we have enough information, and my recommendation would be to dismiss.
Yeah, this I agree with you on this question. In these cases, when we have anonymous letter or complaint with no more details and the compliance officer was not able to find those details,
I also agree.
Yeah.
That's your motion?
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. For S 24-0480, an anonymous complaint was received that alleged that pharmacist neglected to order lab tests.
It's the
I feel
same
like in
thing.
this case, the person maybe meant well, but didn't have all the information when they made the complaint. So I agree that, I believe that we should dismiss. in
I
this-
agree as well. Is that your motion?
Well, Mr. Nassif, did you have something to
No,
add?
no, but just like I wonder, like, I mean, no, I agree with your motion, if that's your motion, you know what I mean? But
Yeah, that is,
just in those cases, like anonymous complaint, I mean, I really wish like this person like give us more information to look into it, especially
Mhm.
with a big health system that will help us, you know what I mean, to protect public health. But I agree with you, we cannot do anything
Yeah,
about it.
I think that they just didn't have all the information. They were, I mean, I encourage people to, speak
Just get
up if
more
they see
information.
something,
Yeah.
but yeah, they just didn't have all the information in this case, it sounds like. But yeah, I make a motion to dismiss.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nair. We'll move back to tab 4Q. This is complaint number 24-0647. Type of complaint, a complainant received a medication. Incorrect label, but the medication inside was her correct dose. I'll open the floor for discussion.
Well, it was misbranded, so I would say 3 hours of non-disciplinary CE and med error prevention to the pharmacist and dismiss the permit.
I second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving on to tab 4T as in Tom, complaint 24-0497. Type of complaint, an anonymous complainant alleged that a technician was consulting with physicians without appropriate training. We'll open the floor for discussion.
I don't know what kind of consulting they do with the provider, just talking about the process, they're talking about business, about the contract. And I believe this is, I mean, I moved to dismiss. I didn't have any information that convinced me there's a violation.
Second.
All right, we've got a first and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving on to tab 4U. This is complaint 24-0605. Type of complaint, the pharmacy dispensed the wrong strength of a medication.
I moved to dismiss permit holder on 3 hours of continuous education, non-disciplinary, for error prevention or patient safety for a pharmacist and a technician.
I do have one question. I think it was page 822. Yeah, 822. And maybe this isn't related, but I'm curious, what is not being displayed in this screen?
You said 822?
Yeah, 822. They might have shifted because that's not okay, so it's 823 now. Is this the tablet or the image of the prescription that's not displayed? Or is this just redacted for us?
I believe this is the image of the tablet, like some software.
If I can jump in, please, board.
Yeah.
Where it says image does not exist, that would be the image of the hard copy prescription.
Okay, so it doesn't show up for a refill.
It appears it's not.
That's too bad. That would be a really helpful thing. Okay, I just wanted to know if it maybe played into this at all, but
on the page before, there is a hard copy there.
right, I see that. Okay, thanks for answering. Did you get a second?
I did want to just briefly bring up that this permit holder, I mean, this is like, this is another return to stock model where these are mentioned as contributing factors. And we're not addressing the systemic problem with these return to stock bottles. And I think that's where our opportunity lies with really protecting the public, is looking at these return to stock bottles. And it appears we've had multiple ones on this today's meeting where these RTS bottles are mentioned as contributing factors.
I agree.
But it's still like the responsibility of the pharmacist and technicians to make sure that they're dispensing the right med. I mean, as a permit holder, you can have as much as it takes, like policies and procedures and enforcing those policies and procedures. But at the end of the day, is the responsibility of the pharmacist or the technicians to assure safety.
Board
So,
members, if I could just please jump in to clarify real
Yeah.
quick, a question I was asked about images does not exist on page 823. That would be the DUR detail that doesn't reappear. It has a summary down in the bottom right-hand corner, but the image of that doesn't appear.
thank you.
Thank you.
I agree, Mr. Nassif, that, you know, we have humans that are responsible for the dispensing and accuracy, but I think systems are in play. And when we've got recurrent themes of issues with contributing factors like return to stock bottles, I think there is a duty for the permit holder to investigate and explore how they can make that a safer process. I don't know if they're bypassing barcode scanning or what workarounds are happening so that these RTS bottles are implicated in so many of these, but I'm concerned we continue to identify human problems, but the system problems I think would give us a broader reach of improving safety for our Arizonans.
What would you suggest? I don't disagree.
At minimum, I think we need some sort of letter of concern to the permit holder to evaluate and identify those barriers that are that may lead to workarounds or bypassing barcode scanning.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I will modify my motion, but when you address this to a permit holder, so it has to be because they have many pharmacies, right? So
Right.
There's not only one pharmacy.
Agreed, but I think hopefully, you know, the corporate permit holder lesson learned from this location, they would share those lessons learned and opportunities with their colleagues across their enterprise.
So we don't have a second for my motion. I modify my motion to add advisory letter for the permit holder
Mhm.
addressing the return to stock process and assure patient safety. Is that right, Mr. Anderson?
That sounds good.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Ms. Galvin, are you clear on the motion in the second?
I'm not, I'm hoping Seth is.
Yeah, so my motion is advisory letter for permit holder to address return to stock process and 3 hours of non-disciplinary continuous education for a pharmacist and a technician on patient safety or error prevention.
Got it. Thank you.
So
And we do have a second for Mr. Thorwald, correct?
Yes.
All right, all in favor or any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to tab 4V, this is complaint number 24-0615. A patient received the incorrect vaccination. I'll make a comment as well on this. The same corporate permit holder is on this tab as in 4AB and as in 4AC with the same type of complaint, with the patient receiving the incorrect vaccination. And if my memory serves me correctly, we spoke to this permit holder in December. I think there is a issue that needs to be resolved with how they're administering vaccinations. This is troubles me.
agree that could be improved. We have seen a few. I don't know if they're all the same, but I do believe, I agree with you that there could be a letter concern.
I'd like to ask Mr. Castaneda, what is the involvement of the pharmacist in this error?
So the pharmacist would be there verifying what the technician would be administering to the patient.
So they verify, and the technician would take the vaccine to the private room or something to administer the vaccine, right?
However, they have their policies
There's
or
nothing rules
workflow
about
set up
this.
to administer the vaccine.
Okay.
I'm curious if we could have a conference with this permit holder and the 4 or the 3 complaints that are all of similar nature. Is that something we've ever done?
You could, because the underlying conduct is so similar and you have expressed concern.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Mr. Anderson.
Go ahead, Ms. Smith.
I agree with you. I think that in this case, the pharmacist prepared the vaccine and the technician took it before it was ready. So I don't know that the pharmacist is part of this complaint or not.
Are you sure that's what happened?
It seems like there's a digital trail that backs up the story. Mr. Castaneda might be able to shed light on that.
Okay, so I'm a little bit unclear of what is being asked. So you want to know if
What role the pharmacist had in this? So it seems to me, if I recall correctly, the pharmacist was in the middle of verifying the dose of the vaccine, and the technician took it prior to it being completely ready.
So
And
yes, she had not mixed it yet, from what I recall. She had so on page 899 is her response.
So is
This patient's vaccines were not in the ready status yet for this patient.
So would you say the pharmacist was part of the error or not? I mean, I kind of feel like they were not.
Let me go to the summary and what I cited the pharmacist for.
Why Mr. Castaneda, looking more into it, from the statement there, technician said she or he did not follow the protocol, right? Did not use the electronic tablet to verify the vaccine.
That part is correct.
Yeah.
I cited the pharmacist for 402A11 for not making the final accuracy check.
Yeah.
I think if you're leaning towards a conference similar to an earlier case, I would just keep the pharmacists and all parties that are named and invite them to a conference, so we have everybody we think could be involved.
I feel like the conference is more of the process of vaccinations in general versus this particular case. I feel like the conference would be just for the permit holder.
Yeah, because it is, yeah, I mean, it's a concern, like many same errors keep happening and happening and happening, you know, so.
I'm fine with the conference for the permit holder. I feel like in this case, it would be 3 hours of non-disciplinary CE for the technician. Potentially disciplinary if they didn't follow the process. That was safety process that was put in place.
So what's the motion? Is that your motion?
Well, I'm just putting it out there as
I just
discussion.
thought, okay,
Yeah. I'm curious what everyone was thinking. If they didn't follow the process, it could be potentially disciplinary in nature, but I think the pharmacist should be dismissed.
I agree with the dismiss pharmacist from this case. But if you're gonna get a conference, I'm fine with just only hear from the permit holder because we know what's
Not
happening.
that we gain anything bringing this particular group of people in for a conference. I think that the permit would be addressing their process in general. But this particular case, I feel like we have enough information to make a decision.
All right, go ahead, move.
Okay. I'll say 3 hours of non-disciplinary CE for the technician, dismiss the pharmacist, and ask the permit holder to come in for a conference about the process.
All right, we have a first, do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor, please, or any further discussion?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, motion carries. Just for continuity, I'm gonna skip to 4AB and then 4AC, which are the related complaints to the corporate permit holder. So this is tab 4AB. This is 24-0651. The complainant received the incorrect vaccination. Open the floor for discussion. And in this case, the pharmacist and the permit were tagged as respondents.
You're talking about 4AB, right?
Yeah, for
4AB.
AB, AC are the same. We didn't hear from the pharmacist, right?
The pharmacist, I believe, signed it.
Okay, so someone spoke on their behalf.
Yes. It was the PIC.
Yeah.
What are people's thoughts?
Right.
So I'll be the same thing, right? 3 hours non-disciplinary. 3 hours of continuous education, non-disciplinary for error prevention and patient safety. And that's for the pharmacist. Now for the permit holder, we already then I send them a letter for conference, right? Or advisory letter. So do we need to repeat the same thing, or we can use the previous case?
No, the previous motion related just to that case. So if you want to bring in the permit in these two cases, you need to make that same motion. If I may clarify, you were talking about 3 hours non-disciplinary CE for the pharmacist and patient safety error prevention.
Correct.
Is that 6 hours total or 3 hours for both?
I would do 3 hours for both.
All right.
Now for the permit holder, I will ask for conference. Go ahead.
I think that should be 3 for each.
That's,
Each-
that's what he said.
Oh, okay.
That was
Sorry.
my
No,
understanding.
no, if 3 for each. That's what I meant. Like, so we
Yeah.
have 2 different cases, like 3, like for AB 3 hours,
Yes,
and for AC another 3 hours.
yes,
Because
yes,
we cannot combine both cases as separate cases.
yes.
Yes.
All right, so we have a first, and Ms. Nair, did you second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And Ms. Galvin, this is, it's clear that this is also for tab 4AC, that same motion and same second.
Correct. That was, he seemed to combine those two.
Very good. All right, we will move back to 4W. This is complaint number 24-0077. Type of complaint, a complainant alleged that the pharmacy filled a prescription with the wrong generic manufacturer. We'll open the floor for discussion.
Make a motion to dismiss.
Any
Yeah.
further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
I did-
opposed?
I didn't hear a second.
I seconded, Mr. Hargraves. Any further any opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving on to tab 4X, this is 24-0582. The pharmacy refilled medication for a patient who was no longer under the provider's care. Open the floor for discussion.
The PMP has been corrected. Do we know?
If I can go ahead and interject and answer that question. I
Yes.
did check with the PIC this morning and they're still working with IT to resolve the issue.
So it's been how long that it's been? I mean, what's a typical turnaround for correcting a PMP report?
It's
I don't know the answer to that.
It is from my experience, it takes 24 hours just to send a correction file. So, or the other option, you delete the old file and you submit a new one.
But we're 90 days past that, or over 90 days, because it looks like these were October 24th and October 28th.
It seems a bit too long.
I'm just trying to understand how they assign a refill request to the old prescription. Mr. Castaneda, do they keep the same RX number when they do that?
So
Give
based
it
on
a
my
new-
understanding, where the technician added the refills to the prescription from in their operating system, it
Yeah.
allowed them to use the old prescription number, and that's based on the PIC's response on page 1016.
Okay.
Used to work in a very old system that you could do that. When they called in a refill, you could just add a refill if everything was the same.
Any additional thoughts, questions?
I do have a concern about them fixing the PMP in a timely fashion. So I was thinking a letter of concern about that to the permit holder. And I guess actually a letter of concern to the tech and the pharmacist.
So Ms. Nair, is that your motion for a letter of concern for all respondents?
What was the refill attributed to the incorrect prescriber, or the prescriber just discontinued care and didn't want any more refills attributed to their name? Because when I read it, it was just that the prescriber didn't want any more prescriptions attributed to their name because they discontinued care.
Correct, yeah. I mean, one of the prescriptions, nothing wrong with it. The only one of them assigned to the wrong name.
Oh,
So because there's two medication involved.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, lorazepam was fine. The tramadol had an error because the lorazepam they used refill.
Right.
The
Okay.
tramadol had no refill. They assigned it. You know what I mean?
Right. So it was attributed to the wrong person. So
yeah.
I changed my original thought to be 3 hours of non-disciplinary CE for the pharmacist and the technician in med error prevention, and a letter of concern about PMP reporting to the to the permit holder, excuse me.
Thank you, Ms. Nair. Do we have a second?
I second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving on to tab 4Y. This is complaint number 24-0603. An incorrect vaccine was administered.
Definitely some confusion here with maybe an oral request.
So I believe that what the staff, pharmacy staff, answered that the patient verbally asked for COVID-19 vaccine, but on the paper they marked flu. And I believe the patient did not want the COVID-19, want the flu vaccine.
I think it's vice versa, Mr. Nassif.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just yeah.
Then the patient checked COVID, but got the flu.
Yeah, they got the flu, correct, but they checked COVID. Correct.
Well, they are saying that the patient asked for the flu and got the flu, but on the paperwork had marked for COVID. That's
Yeah,
what
but I mean, I cannot go through he said and she said, right? Like he said, I all but can see what the paper says, and to me is obviously if the patient marked or checked
COVID.
COVID, so they wanted COVID, unless and if there's any confusion, the pharmacist should verify with the patient, right? And to me, so based on the evidence, I only have evidence that there is an error. So I will go with the 3 hours of continuous education, non-disciplinary, with error prevention or patient safety for both, for pharmacist and a technician, and dismiss the permit holder.
All right, we've got a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to tab 4Z. This is complaint number 24-0572. A prescription was dispensed with the incorrect direction.
Safe.
Mr. Patel, were you trying to say something? No. Okay, open the floor for discussion.
So it's rare that you see a handwritten SIG these days, but it looks like they misread the handwritten SIG. And I would say 3 hours of non-disciplinary CE for the technician and the pharmacist.
And dismiss permit holder.
And dismiss permit holder in med error prevention.
I second.
All right, we've got a first and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving on to tab 4AA. This is complaint 24-0400. This is a failure to maintain effective controls against the diversion of controlled substances for a permit holder and the pharmacist in charge. I'll open the floor for discussion.
I think this is very complex and would require a conference.
Agreed. Is that your
My
motion?
Yeah.
I will second that. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We've done 4A and 4C. We're going to move now to 4AD. This is complaint number 24-0644. Type of complaint, a licensee failed to report charges within 10 days or 10 working days. The licensee pled guilty to a class 1 misdemeanor. We'll open the floor for discussion.
I read this way. I just move with our standard $250 non-disciplinary fine for failing to report charges to the board within 10 business days.
I did have some questions about the behavior in this case. I don't know if what your thoughts are on potentially a fitness for duty evaluation. I feel like some of the potential behavior, like from the police report, is a little concerning for me.
So it looked like he was also hired as a contractor, moved to, was this like Havasu? I can't remember, but along the river. And he didn't change the first notice that we sent to him went to his primary address. And so I'm not sure if he changed his contact information either, which contributed to some of the delays in responding because we sent notice to I believe it was South Carolina, I can't recall.
Yeah, I believe South Carolina. I don't think I believe Arizona is not his
Short term, like he's a loading, so his permanent address
is still there.
The same.
And then I don't know what he indicated was his employer either. So he was working for this temporary agency. So I don't know if that was included in his profile update either. There's a lot of, I think, potential misses by the respondent in maintaining his online profile. In addition to failure, to provide notice of a new criminal charge.
So I hear a few concern here. So I resent my motion so we can start fresh. Okay.
I mean, what the person is stating versus what the police heard on a doorbell camera, and what they got for information from the people involved are not the same. And I find it concerning.
You can move for conference, right?
Or legal advice, maybe.
Would you like to discuss it in a full board meeting next week?
Sure. Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. I will say I'm likely to ask for legal advice about what options we have, but we can make it to the full board.
All right, is there a motion to move this to full board?
I'll make that my motion.
Second.
All right, we have a first by Ms. Thayer, second by Mr. Thorwall. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our last tab, this is for AE complaint number 24-0540. A company relocated without notifying the board. We'll open the floor for discussion.
Yeah, this is not the first time we have this issue, right? And we don't have like a standard for fine how much we'll fine this kind of violation. But to me, it's really severe violation when you just move a pharmacy or a permit without inspection or without notifying the state board. So
Kristen, you're breaking in and out. We can't hear you.
I think what we've done in the past is a $500 non-disciplinary fine. Though it's not defined on our grid, I think that's what we have done in the past.
yeah, but the question is, that's enough, you know what I mean? Like, because I mean, I know this is at the standard we've done in the past, but I'm just like company or pharmacy relocate, right, without notifying the authority or the
I
state.
agree. And we do have it on something to discuss in rulemaking, I think, is what we decided to put it. If board staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but
Board
thought
members,
it
if
was
I could
something-
please jump in.
sure.
On page 21 on the grid, second line down on order for disciplinary civil penalty, there's failing to provide notice before a business is relocated, $500 fine.
So I was right.
So and it is non-disciplinary, correct, Mr. Castaneda? It's not disciplinary.
That's correct, non-disciplinary civil penalty.
I'll make that my motion. $500 non-disciplinary civil penalty.
We have a second.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, we'll move for motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. And I believe that concludes all of the agenda items for the day. Did I miss anything? Board staff.
You did great. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week. The meeting's adjourned.
Have a good day. Thank you.